eller så, som den anden siger, det hedder god formiddag, det ved jeg ikke. For mig er det godmorgen, jeg hedder Niels Billekop, og på vegne af Arrow, så vil jeg godt byde velkommen til det her webinar om DLP, altså Data Loss Prevention, eller på godt dansk, undgå tab af data, fordi det er i bund og grund det, som det her det drejer sig om, hvordan vi beskytter os mod datatab. Nogle af jer var måske på Computer World's Compliance seminar og husker Christian Carlsen, vores egen in-house hacker, og han skulle egentlig også have lavet en introduktion til DLP. Men på grund af tiden løb for Christian, han havde jo travlt med at hacke sig ind på forskellige virksomheder, hvilket man i sig selv kan sige er ret skræmmende, at han på en 25-minutters præsentation kan nå at hacke sig ind på 2 virksomheders infrastruktur. Det viser bare, hvor sårbare vi er. Vi har kaldt seminaret DLP af et NIS 2-krav, og det er også rigtigt. Der er krav i NIS 2-direktivet, som vores DLP-løsning kan afhjælpe. Men det gælder i den grad også GDPR og DORA og andre direktiver og regulativer, fordi de indeholder nemlig de fleste af dem punkter, som handler om tab af data eller undgå tab af data. Og hvis der er nogen, der er interesseret, så har jeg nogle dokumenter, som viser, hvilke artikler og kapitler, som Antex DLP-løsning faktisk afhjælper. Men der er også andre og helt åbenlyse grunde til, at vores kunder ikke ønsker at miste data, og ikke kun i forhold til direktiver og forordninger. Og I ved sikkert selv, hvorfor jeres virksomheder helst vil have styr på, hvilke data, der faktisk forlader virksomheden. Christoffer Callender, som er vores svenske kollega, han har lovet at holde det her webinar på engelsk, blev vi lige enige om i hvert fald. Jeg tror, det er bedre end svensk, så det håber I er OK med. Christoffer, som har arbejdet med DLP i rigtig mange år, han har lovet at give os et indblik i, hvordan Symantec's løsning fungerer. Og som nogle af jer måske hørt, så har vi sat tid til spørgsmål bagefter, eller også har man mulighed for at stille dem i chatten. Så nu vil jeg give ordet videre til Christoffer. Om du forstod, hvad jeg sagde, Christoffer.
Absolutely.
Now's your turn.
Thank you. Let me go into a full presentation mode. Is it showing okay now?
Yes, it is. It's fine.
Perfect. So yeah, I got most of your introduction, Niels. Thank you. And the main topic for today, or the main product in question, is of course DLP, data loss prevention. But my talk today is going to be actually a little bit broader. That's why I wrote Zero Trust Information Security. DLP is the most important tool we have for information security, but the concept itself is much larger than that. That's why I have incorporated a few more items in today's presentation, because DLP is all about, recognizing data and what type of data it is, and then the ability to policy control who can access and what you can do with that data. But to be able to do that, you need to be able to switch on your DLP policies like everywhere, like endpoints, servers, email communication, cloud communication, network, and to be able to get access to those applications and those different places, you need other tools as well. So that's why I have also included Zero Trust Network Access as the third point, to explain a little bit what that is and why that plays an important role in information security. Then I'm going to come into DLP and the platform and the concept. And to be able to switch on DLP policy for cloud services, you need another tool called CASB, Cloud Access Security Brokers. So I'm going to explain what that is as well. And in the end, I'm going to give you some few tips, how you can get started, where to start and how to do it. So along the talk, please post your questions during the chat, and I will make sure to leave some time at the end, 5 or 10 minutes, to answer any questions you might have put in chat, but also, we can unmute ourselves if anyone wants to ask me a question in real time. So let's start. And the very first item before I start is to talk a little bit about, the zero trust concepts, the different abbreviation and buzzwords, if you will. I know probably all of you have heard these words, expressions, abbreviations before. Maybe you're sick of them, maybe even. But I just wanted to go through how I see these concepts, so we're on the same page, so that you know what I mean when I refer to these expressions. So the first one, zero trust. I think everyone has heard of zero trust. I think most people have a pretty good idea what zero trust is, but to me, zero trust it's the vision, a way of thinking. In the old way, you chose to trust people. You chose to trust clients. If you had authenticated with your domain credentials on your machine, and if you were on the corporate network, you were considered to be trusted, and then given access to applications. Zero trust is the complete opposite. Until you have authenticated, verified who you are, you shouldn't have access to anything, anytime. It doesn't matter if you're on a managed machine. It doesn't matter if you're on the corporate network. The default way is no access. And then you need to prove yourself to get access. And by the way, zero trust and that principle is not just, IT. It's like everything. It's physical aspects of it as well. Basically, always verify before you give access to anything. So that's the vision. And then the question is, how can you achieve that? And that's where SASE or SSE. SASE stands for Secure Access Service Edge. SSE stands for Security Service Edge. Basically, SSE is the security aspects of the SASE architecture. And again, SASE is not a product. It's not something you can buy and install. It's an architecture. It's something you build with the help of a lot of different tools and products. Then we have CTNA, Zero Trust Network Access. And I know a lot of people confuse CTNA with CT, like Zero Trust Network Access, Zero Trust. Zero Trust Network Access is actually a tool. It's a product. It's something that you can buy and install. It's something that is better, easier, and more secure than VPN that you should start using instead of VPN, and I will cover that in the presentation as well. And then the most important abbreviation for today, DLP, data loss prevention. That is also a product, actually. It can be multiple products. What I'm going to talk about today is the importance of a DLP platform. All of the various different DLP products managed from a central location to be able to get complete visibility everywhere. And then CASB, Cloud Access Security Broker. Cloud Access Security Broker is also actually a product. It has always been, ever since it was launched, maybe 10 odd years ago. It used to be a product you could buy. In today's talk, I'm going to explain to you why I think that CASB as a product in itself doesn't provide much value. CASB is a way to gain or give access to cloud applications, cloud services. And that is crucial to be able to enable DLP policies to cloud services. All right, let's start. And the first topic, I'm going to explain to you why Zero Trust Network Access came to be. Why is that a more secure and better way to give access to applications than VPN? Because VPN today is considered legacy. It's not a secure way to give users access to applications. And why is that? I mean, VPN is still the kind of standard, and it has served us well for like forever. Since I can remember, you know, VPN has been the way to give remote users, well, users outside of the network, access to applications on the network. And, you know, years ago, when, you know, most users and resources were within the network, within, you know, your own data center, and you only had very few people, you know, accessing from the outside, VPN was perfect. But today, I think we can all agree that the reality is completely different. I think, you know, if not most, at least many of the applications that we provide to our users are SaaS applications. They reside outside of your own network. If you think about, you know, all of the various different applications that your users are using today, many of them are not even sanctioned by your own organizations. And I'm thinking about, like, the most common example today is Gen I applications like ChatGPT. Even if you don't have your own Gen AI applications to your users, we can be sure that most users are using it anyway, and that's what we call, you know, shadow IT. Applications our users are using without IT's knowledge. And then when you think about, you know, are all users accessing these applications from a managed PC where you have installed security and agents? I think no. In this day and age, I think a lot of people have, you know, contractors, consultants, professional services, where you sometimes need to provide access to your applications to these people. And none of these, and also, of course, attackers. Like when you hijack someone's identity, piggyback on them, you know, when they gain access via VPN to your network, how can you be sure or know if the user accessing your network is actually the user itself and not, you know, someone using a stolen identity? So VPN has a very hard time addressing all of these modern challenges. That's why we need a new approach. So if don't get me wrong, I'm not saying that the perimeter has disappeared. I'm just saying that the perimeter is not, you know, when most users and applications reside outside of the perimeter does very little to secure these use cases and to secure, you know, secure access to applications and to secure the exchange of information between users and systems. So that's why we need a different approach. And the different approach is zero trust network access. I think with zero trust network access, it's not about giving access to the network. I think zero trust network access is more about, it is to give access to the application itself and not the network. So we need to build new perimeters around each application, making sure that if an attacker is trying to gain access to an application, they're not giving access to the network, so they can't do lateral movement from one application to another within your traditional perimeter. Another issue with VPN, and that is, by the way, lateral movement. If you give access to the network, since you don't know exactly which applications the user is going to use at any given point in time, you give access to all of the applications. So with zero trust network access, you don't give access to the network at all. You give access to an application. And the way that works, zero trust network access, in our case, it's a SaaS solution. You have a SaaS portal much like, identity solutions like Okta, where you can log into a portal and you see all the applications as icons, and then you click the icon and you automatically get access to that application. And the way that works is there's an application portal, and then on each application server, regardless if that application is hosted within your own data centers or if it's hosted like in an infrastructure as a service environment like Azure, GCP, you install a connector on that application server. And then a secure tunnel is established from the application to the portal. So from the inside and out. So there's no need to open any ports in the firewall allowing access from the outside to the inside. So the applications are actually totally invisible. You don't need to publish anything. And then that communication tunnel is kept alive, and the traffic is again initiated from the inside to the outside. So from the outside then, the users, regardless if they're trying to access the application from a managed device or an unmanaged device, can get secure access. If it's an unmanaged device, a bring your own device, they will just access the portal. And then they will click the application icon and get access to the application. If it's a managed device, you can actually use an agent, and then you can enable single sign-on. If you have logged into your machine with your corporate credentials, you can access the application in the same way as you did before with single sign-on, if you choose to do it that way. So this approach to give access to applications instead of giving access to the network via VPN is more user-friendly and more secure. It's a more secure way of giving access. Not only are you only giving access to the application, when you give access to that application, you can monitor exactly what the user is doing within that application. And if the user is, doing something that seems suspicious, you can real-time also revoke access to the application on the fly. And you have complete audit logs as well, what happened within that application. Since it's also a SaaS solution, it's simpler and cheaper for you to actually manage this environment, since you don't have to take care of patching and updating the system, because that is managed by us. So Zero Trust Network Access is a way to give secure access to application. And that is very important from an information security perspective, because if we get access to those applications, regardless if it's in the data center or in the cloud, you can also turn on DLP capabilities that I will come to shortly. So information security, and that's the main topic for today, DLP. And that is a very hot topic. That is actually, it's the most common conversation that I have today for various different reasons. It's a super important part, of course, in the zero trust world, the zero trust concept that many people are trying to achieve today. In the world, post-COVID, if you have a large part of your workforce working from home, from outside of the network, information security is also super important. But I think the most common reason why most companies are looking into information security and DLP today is compliance. It's all of these new various different EU regulations that we need to adhere to today. And I will come back to that as well. So, information security, DLP, it might sound simple to some people. If I compare, information security to normal, threat prevention, threat prevention is kind of easy. I'm not saying that it's easy, but at least it's easy to know if you should allow or block something. You know, if we, with malware protection, if we detect something as malicious, you know, the policy is to block it, right? You shouldn't allow anything that is malicious. But with information security, you know, if you see an email marked as confidential, just as an example, in an email, you know, what should you do? Should you allow that, yes or no? And this is where it becomes a little bit complex, you know. I guess the answer is, should you allow it? Well, it depends. You know, who is it trying to send that email? Who is he sending that email to? Exactly what information, you know, does the email contain? And you need to be able to know all of these various different things before you can make a decision if you should allow this communication, yes or no. And email is just one example. If you think about all of the different ways and all of the different places where we store information today, a lot of different cloud services. You have internally on servers, on clients. You know, you have users using managed devices, unmanaged devices. You have users on your network. You have users on public networks. And if you try to, you know, think about all of these different use cases and the ability to get visibility and the ability to policy control in all of these different use cases, it quickly becomes very complex. You know, there are a lot of different channels where you need to have the technical ability to turn on DLP. So when you think about all of this, I think most people have realized that, you know, data loss prevention, information security, it is complex. And if you also now add all of the various different new EU regulations that you need to adhere to, like, well, GDPR, we all know about, NIS2, I will come back to NIS2 as well. It's not just, you know, for your own protection, it's also for regulatory compliance. And the stakes are high. You know, either if you fail audits, you know, worst case scenario, you might lose your license to operate, if you will. And, you know, if you lose information or if you get breached in any ways, you know, it has severe consequences for your business. Again, I also have to say that no product can make you compliant. You know, you can't buy a DLP product or any other product, install that, and then become compliant. At the same time, I don't see how you can become compliant without the use of technical tools, of products like DLP. And maybe many of you know this by heart already, but this is Article 21 in NIS2, and it explains, you know, what capabilities or requirements you need for cybersecurity risk management. And if you look at all of these things, to me, the DLP tool, the DLP product, is the most important tool that you need to use. And I can't see how you could become compliant or how you can fulfill all of these various different requirements without the use of DLP. Policies of risk analysis and information security system, that is exactly what DLP is built to do. Incident handling, you know, getting the full context on an incident, being able to explain and see exactly what happened. Like Christoffer accessed information on an HR system and he sent it via email to a third party, and this was the recipient and this was the evidence of the actual information that he was accessing and trying to share. You know, to get all of that information, to get all of that context in the same incident, that is very useful when communicating with your SOC. Supply chain security, you know, the ability to also securely policy control how you exchange information with third parties to secure the supply chain. DLP is a super good tool for that as well. If you go down, just to mention another one, policies and procedures regarding the use of cryptography. Like with a DLP product, you can also choose to enable in a policy if the information is sensitive to automatically enable encryption to make sure that that information is encrypted. So as you can see, to be compliant, that is much bigger than one product. It's people, process, and how you handle risk management overall in your organization. But without the use of DLP, I don't see how you can actually achieve this. So compliance is and has now for a number of years been a boardroom issue. And that is a good case, you know. When the board realizes that ultimately they are responsible for this, they start to involve themselves and they start to ask the right questions. Easy questions, important questions, like, are we compliant? What's our risk and what do we need to do about it? But to be able to answer those questions, you need accurate, good data. You need good visibility. You need good understanding about, you know, what regulations you need to adhere to. And then, you know, from a visibility and control perspective, you need to understand, you know, what you have in your environment and how to make sense of the data those different tools produces. And you need to be able, you know, to measure it, to know, you know, where you are and where you have room for improvement. So this is complex. To achieve this, I think the way we have gone about it, most organizations are trying to solve this complexity is the wrong way. And when I say the wrong way is like whenever there is a gap or whenever there is an area where you need to improve or raise your security level, you buy a new product. And that is, of course, I mean, good. We sell products, so we are super happy when you buy more product. But I think the old way of buying just another tool, like if you choose best of breed or if you choose the cheapest tool, you end up in a place where you have a lot of different security tools in place, and it's getting harder and harder and more complex to manage and maintain and uphold the knowledge to be able to operate all of these different tools. And to be able to prove compliance, that you have the right security measures in place, you know, gathering reports from all of these different places, knowing where you need to get the information from is super complex, and most people have realized that it has become unsustainable. So you need a new, better approach. From an information security perspective, I'm not saying that you should not buy DLP capabilities, because DLP capabilities is something that you need. And I also have to add that most products out there already have built-in DLP capabilities. You know, your email gateways or email protection solutions, most of them have DLP policies built into the tool. If you look at next generation firewalls and proxy, the various different proxy solutions, they all have like built-in DLP capabilities. If you go into Office 365 as an example, they also have built-in DLP capabilities. And that's part of the problem, I think, because when you have DLP built in to a lot of different various products, you might think, you know, I can just enable that DLP policy set. But that's exactly what we have done, and that's exactly why we are in this complex, unsustainable situation that we find ourselves in today, because it has become too hard to manage. So DLP in general is all about the ability to discover sensitive information, to be able to also classify information and maybe tag it as classified, restricted, sensitive, or public. It's also the ability to monitor. If you can recognize information, the ability to monitor how that information flow is going within your environment, but also to cloud services. And ultimately then also the ability, if it is sensitive information that can't be shared on a certain channel to a certain external party, the ability to actually block that, to create a policy that says no, and then to prevent that communication. That is the whole idea of DLP, data loss prevention. But the issue I've been talking about is that when you choose to enable, as in this example on this slide, when you enable different DLP policies in different products, vendors, A, B, C, D, and even more, I've seen even more. What if you have an audit and you need to, prove to the auditor that you have DLP policy sets enabled in your environment? That becomes very hard. Who do you reach out to get the right reports to prove that you've covered this base? If you need to change your DLP policy, if you need to update it, and that's actually, by the way, when you work with information security and DLP, it's an ongoing iterative process that you need to update over time again and again and again. So if you need to change something, where do you change? If you need to change that in multiple different places, it's hard. And also maybe vendor A, B, C, and D, they don't all have identical policy controls, right? So it might be so that you can enable it on 2 of the solutions, but there's a gap in number 3 or number 4. So obviously, as you can understand, and I hope all agree, it would be easier if you were to have like one policy that you could enable on every single channel, every single vector, application, cloud, network, and so on. And that is exactly what we at Symantec has built over the years. So by the way, our DLP platform, because that's what we have, a DLP platform, that was actually an acquisition we made back in 2007, a company called Vontu. And since then, we have continuously improved our DLP capabilities now for almost 20 years. And we have designed this to be super stable and good, suitable for very large organizations. But in today's day and age, it doesn't matter if you're a super large organization or if you're a mid-size or a small organization. When it comes to regulatory compliance, we all need to adhere to the exact same requirements and rules. So I will show you later on our portfolio, but we have the ability to cover and turn on DLP capabilities everywhere. All channels that you might have, if you look at the left-hand side of this slide, all of your various different storage areas, your applications, and again, that's where Zero Trust Network Access came into play. Devices such as your clients, your servers, your cloud applications, your cloud services, email, network, and you can create these policies and apply them to users. So regardless, what type of device or from what location you're accessing the data, the DLP policy follows you. If you're on a managed device, if you're on an unmanaged device, if you're logging on from within the network or the outside the network, we cover all of those various different use cases. So with this consolidated holistic approach, it makes life easier for everyone. If you look at the right-hand side of this slide, the security operations team, super happy when they get like one consolidated incident with all of the context from beginning to end in one event, as I explained in the beginning. Christoffer sat on his laptop, logging on from home to an HR server, accessing that specific document, trying to send it out using his private Gmail to an external party. To have that entire flow in the same incident gathered with the evidence as well makes life super easy and saves a lot of time for security operations. From the customers as well, it makes life easier. For the users. In most cases, when you lose data, it's actually not because of an external breach. It's actually when a user has accidentally shared sensitive information by mistake to someone. We have all done it, you know, sent an email to the wrong recipient, as an example. So with DLP, with our DLP, we also have a super good coaching capability, like a pop-up. If you're handling sensitive information and trying to do something that is not okay according to policy, a pop-up can appear where it says you are about to send this piece of sensitive information to an external party. Are you sure you want to do that? And, you know, explaining and highlighting to users is super helpful, you know, to help them not make mistakes. And also, if users understand what they're doing and they understand why it's not allowed because it's sensitive, it makes it easier for everyone, you know, to adhere to the rules. Compliance, regulators during audits, it's also super convenient to be able to have like one report explaining that you have these policies in place. So with all of that, you know, if we compare the existing way or the old way where you choose to enable and buy more and more products and enable them, you know, my message, our message, what I've seen, most organizations who have failed on the left-hand side are starting to realize that we need one integrated approach. We need one platform where we can create one central policy and apply that central policy everywhere. If we need to change it, we change it in one place and it gets changed everywhere. So if I switch a little bit to, you know, our capabilities with our DLP solution, the ability to recognize, detect, and classify information, that's where we excel. We have so many different ways of recognizing and detecting data. And that's one of the most important areas where we have, you know, over the years, continued to improve our capabilities. So I dare to say, you know, that we have been in the market for the longest time, and by far we have the broadest coverage, like anything from regex expressions, you know, recognizing simple text. We can even, you know, hash files and recognize unstructured data, of course, structured data, and that's easier. We have an amazing OCR capability, you know, the ability to understand images, and if an image contains sensitive information. And we achieve that over time using machine learning and also now AI capabilities. So we have an amazing capability to recognize data. And then when it comes to, you know, how to enable, how to monitor, and ultimately how to enable protection policies to either allow or block, you can choose to deploy that, as I said previously, everywhere. You have all supported storage areas, clients, servers. We have the ability with appliances to monitor and protect network flows within the network. And then we also have the cloud capabilities. At the bottom in this page, it says user behavior analysis. And that's actually also sometimes referred to as UEBA, user and entity behavior analysis. And that's when I spoke about, you know, we apply DLP policies to users. We will also monitor how users are behaving. giving users a risk score. And you can also create your DLP policies to monitor and be dynamic depending on the user's risk score. So if a user account has been hijacked and that user is starting to do things that they haven't normally been doing in the past, that will get flagged, and then a more strict DLP policy will be enabled. So the last part here, and that's all about enabling DLP in the cloud. That's where cloud access security brokers comes in. And as I said, CASB solutions have been promoted and sold as separate products. We have chosen to include our cloud access security broker in our DLP product, because DLP information security is the most common use case for cloud access security brokers. So we just thought, DLP doesn't make sense without the use of CASB solutions. So we will just include CASB in the DLP license, in the DLP products. And cloud, there are many different use cases for CASB solutions. The most important one, I think, is visibility and compliance. And when I say visibility, not only can we see and understand exactly what cloud applications and cloud services the users are using, that's also super important for shadow IT, as I mentioned in the beginning. If users are using ChatGPT or any other perhaps unsanctioned applications, we get knowledge about that. And we also get knowledge about all of these various different cloud applications and cloud services about, the risk attached to that cloud service. We have application intelligence built into the CASB solution. We have entire teams just monitoring all of these different cloud services, information intelligence about the company. From what country, where do they have their HQ, what certifications do they have, how do they handle, information. When it comes to data protection, see CASB as a way to get access to cloud applications via APIs. We will inject ourselves into Microsoft 365 as an example. So when you sit inside of Microsoft 365, you get visibility and you can start to control whatever happens and how data is shared in OneDrive as an example. But being inside of the applications, whatever we detect inside Microsoft 365, it's very often, after the fact. So you also need the ability to sit inline. So we also have proxy capabilities in the CASB solution. So you can both sit inside the cloud SaaS solution, but also inline, getting visibility and control to the traffic going to and from the cloud. So these slides show you all of the different components in our DLP platform. And it might look complex, and I'm not going to kid you. Absolutely, a DLP practice is a complex practice with a lot of different moving parts to be able to catch every single use case. And what you see here in the picture, years ago in the past, all of these things used to be different products. Today, when it comes to DLP, we only have two flavors, if you will. We have two options. In yellow there in the middle, you see data loss prevention core, and then you see data loss prevention cloud. So core are all of the functions and capabilities you need to protect on-prem. Clients, servers, data center, network, email, everything that you have on-prem is included in that license. And on the right-hand side, data loss prevention cloud, you can see that it says CASB in many different places. So that's basically all of your on-prem capabilities. To enable them in the cloud, that's where you need, the cloud access security broker. So that's why you see CASB for SaaS, IaaS, gateway on the right-hand side. So to make it easier for you, we have included everything in 2 licenses, core and cloud. And then over time, you can choose to enable or deploy the various different parts when you're ready. So how can you get started? So I'm going to show you 2 slides. This first slide is kind of a practice or how we have helped customers successfully deploy a DLP practice. The first part is just visibility. You don't start, blocking stuff from day one. Just enable the monitor capability. Some people choose to start monitoring on endpoints. Other people start monitoring, on the network. A lot of people choose actually both. But again, just in monitor mode. So when you can start and see how the information flows, goes within your network, when you can start to see where in your environment you have sensitive data stored, that's super important when trying to understand, what DLP policies, what remediation policies you need to turn on in the end. But the first part is just to monitor and get a good understanding where you have sensitive information, who is accessing that sensitive information, what people your organizations are sharing that information with. The second part is, if you detect in the first phase that you have a lot of sensitive information in places where it shouldn't be, like move it. If you see a lot of sensitive information in a storage location where it shouldn't be, just move it. Move it or delete it, or we also have capabilities to encrypt it. We're still not blocking. The third phase is when I spoke about, coaching. You need to, over time, slowly educate and inform your users that you're about to turn on DLP capabilities. And without blocking, just informing with a pop-up, like you are now accessing sensitive information, sharing it with external parties. This is not okay according to our policy. In the future, we're actually going to start blocking this type of behavior. If you still need to do it, ask for permission from your manager or someone else. So kind of to guide and coach your users with pop-ups has proven to be a very effective way to prepare your organization for the last phase. And the last phase is when you start to turn on your prevention, your remediation policy sets, not allowing things. This approach that we have taken has proven successful in helping customers. It's also, I think, it's also in line with Gartner and with Gartner's, framework or 5 steps of a successful DLP implementation. It's a lot more than just, the product. It's the whole people, process, project. But I think the DLP tool plays an important part in all of these different phases. Scoping the program. The first phase of just enabling monitor gives you super valuable information about the scope. Where do we have sensitive information? Who is accessing it? That's super important. The second phase, awareness and governance, you need to educate and inform the organization about, what's going to happen. The coaching part plays an important role there as well. Design the initial architecture. And this, I think, is the biggest change in mindset. This is, remember the slide where I had the complex environment with a lot of different DLP capabilities and products on the left-hand side, and on the right-hand side, you have like one consolidated central approach. So this is obviously making life easier for everyone, and is also now recommended by Gartner. You need to have one consolidated DLP platform and DLP practice. And then dependencies, that's super important. one of the most important dependencies from DLP is like if you give access to sensitive information to anyone, you know, that's not good. So identity, I think, is the most important dependency. Oh, you shouldn't give access to sensitive data to everyone. So making sure that only if you are authorized to access that information, you should get access to that information. If you're not authorized, DLP should just block the ability to access and share that information. And then deploy, operate, evolve over time. This is where, you know, having one central platform, if you need to change something, just change it in one place, and then it will propagate throughout your environment, makes life more easy for you. The last comment I'm going to make here, in the beginning, I talked about, you know, that VPN is a legacy way of thinking about things. Zero Trust Network Access is a better way to give access to applications, and then in turn also enable DLP policies on those applications. It's kind of hard to just overnight throw out VPN and turn on Zero Trust Network Access everywhere. So the best approach here is a phased approach. You don't actually need to turn off VPN at all. You can just start to enable Zero Trust Network Access on certain applications over time. And then over time, just enable it on more and more and more applications until you've, you know, reached a time where all applications are provisioned using Zero Trust Network Access instead of VPN. And then you can just turn on VPN. So they can coexist over time. I also want to say that, you know, if your VPN solution or VPN license has expired, you can actually also enable a legacy VPN approach in a Zero Trust Network Access solution if you have the agent. It's not recommended for me to actually do that, but if you want to avoid being double licensed for VPN and Zero Trust Network Access, that is also possible. But a phased approach over time is my recommendation there. So with that, we have 6 minutes to spare. So maybe now we can open it up for questions, Niels and Halle, if we have any questions in the chat. If we don't, maybe we can unmute ourselves for some questions.
I
don't see any. Oh. Sorry, Niels.
Okay. No, I don't see any questions in the chat. So if anybody has any questions, feel free to unmute and ask them directly. And if you don't want to do it in English, feel free to do it in Danish. I'll do my best to translate.
And just for your information, I will stop the recording now. Jeg stopper optagelsen, så jeres spørgsmål ikke kommer med i recordingen.